So I don't actually usually make tutorials, so please excuse the quality of this one. It's just intended as a quick tip type walkthrough. I bought myself a plotter recently, drawing machine, and been having lots of fun with that. But one of the things I wanted to do was to be able to use Cinema 4D to create 3D scenes and export those scenes as vector images, which I could then draw with the plotter. And the problem I kept running into was if I had several objects in the scene, they were exporting successfully as vectors. Once I used the sketch and toon materials as advised online, but the problem was that there were transparency with the objects. So if I had one object sitting in front of the other, you would see straight through that front object and see the object behind in its entirety. So it would just be a big intersecting mess of lines, and it's quite hard to discern what you're looking at. And what I actually want is for any object to occlude the object behind it where it's covering up. So this is, after lots of messing around and testing, this is the workflow and the necessary settings that I found that finally work to give me this result. So, another thing I wanted to achieve was I wanted to be able to export separate objects as separate layers in the same vector file, so that I could have these drawn. So just to explain, well, I have them drawn as different colours. So let's say I've got two objects in the scene. I want object 1 to be red. I want object 2 to be blue. And so this workflow covers that as well. And the reason that the objects need to be exported as one single vector file rather as two separate vector files is the occlusion, one object hiding the other behind it, only works if they are the same vector file, one exported vector file from Cinema 4D. So this is the workflow that covers all of that. So let's jump into it. So first of all, let's create some basic shapes. Let's throw a cube into the scene. Let's move it over here, and I'm going to add some segments just so we can see the lines and show that this technique is working. So we've got some polys to work with. And let's throw a cube in front of that, and let's just position it so it's not intersecting. It can be if you want, but I don't want it to be. But it is occluding the cube partially. Obviously that depends on the camera angle, so there we go. Now, what we are actually going to join these shapes together, so we need to make them editable first of all. And what's really important is, I'll do this in a moment. What we need to do is we need to assign a poly tag to each object, because when we assign the sketch and toon materials, we need two separate sketch and toon materials to give us the two separate layers in the final vector file. This will all make sense soon. So I've selected all the polys, Control A or Command A on the Mac of the cube, store that selection. I'll do it with the sphere as well, select all and store selection. And I named the first one number 1, the poly tag number 1. I'll name this one number 2. And I've also named the shapes to match that, just to make things tidy for myself, and put them in number order again to keep it tidy for myself. Now we want access to the sketch and toon materials. To do that, we need to go into the render settings, make sure you render it as standard, and a right click and select the sketch and toon. That gives us the overall options. I don't know if you need to change this here. I'm going to do it anyway, just in case. So that gives us one sketch and toon material or sketch map. I'm going to name that number 1 because we're going to have two materials. And let's duplicate that. Let's copy and paste it, or Control drag, Command drag. And I'm going to disable the strokes, and this keeps the vector lines nice and tidy. It doesn't omit any of the strokes in the final vector, and disable strokes in both of them. There we go. That keeps the final vectors nice and clean. Okay, so I'm going to combine these two shapes now. So select them both, right click and connect objects and delete. And because we've named the polygon tags with two different names, it keeps both of them. So because we named them 1 and 2, we've got two tags, preserved on the compound shape. I'm just labelling this for my own tidiness. So we can see there we've got tag 1 and tag 2. And if we double click on them, it shows the shape, the objects they correspond to. So let's apply our sketch material 1. And we're going to change the settings under lines. Disable folds, disable creases, keep border enabled, and edges enabled. And in the selections tab, this is where you drag in polygon 1. This is material 1, so we'll drag in polygon tag 1. And we're going to do the same with material 2, drag that on. And we're going to change the same, let's just putting them in order, again, tidy. And let's change those settings again, disable folds, disable creases, enable border and edges. And then in selections, the lines selection box, again, this time drag in tag 2. So now we've got 2 materials, each one assigned to the tag. So in other words, each one assigned to a separate object. So that's what's going to give us 2 different layers, 2 separate groups of vectors in the final Illustrator file. So we've got a compound object, that's going to give us 1 exported vector, but with 2 layers. So now the export settings, so export Illustrator AI, and your settings, so output, make sure you choose editor. This is what's worked best for me, maybe something else works better, I don't know, this is what's best for me. Z order front, make sure layers is enabled, that's going to give us 2 vector layers, and we're only exporting the lines. So export lines, disable surface, disable animation. That's okay that, and that's going to give us option to choose where to save our Illustrator file. I'm just going to do it on the desktop, and I call that, whatever, call it whatever you want. And save that. And now if we jump into Adobe Illustrator or the vector program of your choice, and we're going to open up that file, go to the desktop, find that file, and open that up, and hopefully okay, so we've got the exported lines, and most importantly, they are the spheres occluding the cube, and also we've got 2 separate layers of vectors, one for the sphere, one for the cube. So now I can draw these separately and assign different color, draw them with different colored pens with my plotter. There we go. So that's it. I hope this process works for everyone. I hope it helps you out. If you have any questions, put them in the comments in the comments, and I'll check back periodically in case I can help anyone. All right, thanks for watching. Take care. Bye bye.